What's up, everyone? Before we get into today's episode, I've got an announcement. Listener Request Month is coming back to the main quest. With April being the show's anniversary, I can't think of a better way to celebrate than handing the keys over to you and letting you decide what I play and cover on the show. This is your chance to make me play anything. Want me to talk about Mega Man X way before it's scheduled to come up on the show? You can do that. You want to completely ruin my week by forcing me to play Perfect Weapon? I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. But before you start getting trigger happy, there are a few rules. First, you can't submit a game that I've already covered. I know I've done a lot, so do a quick double check on the feed. You don't want your submission tossed if it gets picked. Second, submit 2 games. This is a safety net in case I've already covered one, or if I don't own it. Again, submitting 2 games means your ballot still has a shot. Third, please don't go crazy with 80-hour JRPGs or massive time sinks. I love long games, but shorter games mean more episodes and more variety. Try to keep picks under 20 hours. If you're unsure, howlongtobeat.com is your friend. And finally, if you are a patron, first of all, thank you. You get up to 2 extra submissions. That means you can triple up on a title you really want, or throw 3 completely different games into the pool. So where do you send your picks? You can submit through mainquestpod.com, join the Discord, and head into the PvP channel. Those links are all at linktr.ee/mainquestpod, or just check out the show notes. The deadline to get your submission in is Friday, February 6th. That is Friday, February 6th. Don't wait, because it's going to sneak up on you. Once again, mainquestpod.com or linktr.ee/mainquestpod. Have fun, good luck, and now let's get into the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Main Quest Podcast. This is, of course, the #1 retro gaming podcast that really wants to know what the cost of living is in the Mushroom Kingdom when you can just snatch up land, castles, and mansions so easily. Like, seriously. And after doing some checking, this is episode 117. And as always, I am your host, Keith. And if you would like to support the show and get something in return, consider joining the Patreon. There's a couple of tiers on there, and I'm sure you'll find something that suits you. There's stuff on there that you won't get here on the main feed, including uncensored and ad-free main feed episodes. So you'll know exactly what I mean when I say. So I guess you just won't know unless you jump on the bandwagon. But of course, the moral support is just as important as the financial support, so no worries if it's something that you can't do. I know money's tight for a lot of people these days. Link to the Patreon is in the show notes, of course. With that said, I am flying this thing solo again, and I'm glad to get this one out of the way because, my God, this game is a disaster. But before I actually break all of that down, let's talk about some other stuff that I've been playing. So I booted up my PS2 to play some Need for Speed Most Wanted. And I've been playing that for a guest spot that I'll be doing sometime this month, if I haven't done it already by the time this comes out. But patrons will know my history with the Need for Speed franchise. I covered Hot Pursuit a few years ago on that feed. And I'll say that at the moment, I enjoy Most Wanted until I don't. It's the first Need for Speed game that I've played that has a story. And listen, I love racing games. It's one of my favorite genres. Any longtime listener will know this. I come from the arcade racing pedigree, but I also enjoy the more realistic simulation racers. And Most Wanted kind of wants to be both and doesn't do either one very well. The car physics don't feel great. For the most part, it literally feels like I'm driving around like a 50,000 pound sled. And the cars are almost magnetic in the way they attach to the road. And then the cutscenes, man, I mean, my God, they are the definition of cringy. Like, it makes me want to crawl into a hole and die. It's like someone thought, like, man, what if we mix the Fast and Furious with the Jersey Shore? Like, two franchises that were basically at their peak in the mid-aughts. So it's era appropriate. I don't want to give away too much of my thoughts on this since I'm going to be talking about it later, but it is it's an incredibly strange racing game. I also started Radiant Historia, perfect chronology. And boy, do I hate myself for starting that. I don't have the time to play it. But I want to play it. And so I checked how long to beat, and it says for casual players, you can finish it in about 30 hours. And I'm maybe 5 or 6 hours into it. But with Player versus Podcast coming up and the patron poll game, which is Perfect Dark, by the way, and then Resident Evil Requiem dropping in a few weeks, it definitely was a mistake starting Radiant Historia. I don't have time to play it, and the only reason why I started it is because I wanted to. Like, one night, I just opened up my 3DS, and I'm like, hey man, this looks sick. And then I launched the game, and yeah, it's sick as So if you don't know what Radiant Historia is, it's basically a strategy RPG with a focus on time travel as the central plot thread. And I'm usually pretty skeptical about time travel plots, but the way the narrative handles that is very interesting. And the game is very narrative heavy. Of the handful of hours that I have played the game, I think I maybe have only spent 40 minutes in battle, basically. So I would say like the first 2 hours is mostly cutscenes. But so far, I mean, the characters are very well written. The voice acting is very good. Far better than it needs to be, for a 3DS game. And the battles are fun and they're engaging, and I'm really upset. I'm very upset at myself for starting it knowing that I'm going to be tied down by the stuff coming up for the show. That's how it be sometimes. The show stuff is also going to affect a review as well. Like I want to write more articles, but I'm not playing anything outside of the boundaries of the podcast. And now I realize that all I'm really doing is complaining that I have too many games to play in the first place, and how touching grass is also affecting these things. Like I'm a weirdo or whatever. Who complains about the things that I'm complaining about? Speaking of complaining about things, I guess we should talk about today's game. I wish I didn't have to, but this is the life I chose, and today I chose to play Mario is Missing! You gotta say it with excitement because the exclamation mark is in the title. As always, I start my previous history. I start with my previous history, rather. Wow, it's going to be a long night, folks. Prior to playing the game for the podcast, and I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I don't know what my previous history is with the game. I mean, I kind of know, but also I don't know. And I don't have an excuse. I should have known, other than being deceived by the marketing. I really do not know why I had this game as a child. And to be fair, I didn't buy it. I only rented it, and then I promptly returned it. And the way that Nintendo advertised the game was as if it was just like any other ordinary-ass Mario game. Except this time, it's Luigi in the driver's seat, which was unheard of. I mean, that's cool as hell. A full-blown Luigi adventure, which I guess technically, you know, that was Super Mario Brothers 2. That was really the only other time you ever got to play as Luigi, unless you're relegated to second player in those other Mario games. But this was the first time that you got to actually play as someone else that was part of the wider Mario lore, if that's what you want to call it. Now, I had to wonder, you know, how different would Luigi's mechanics be from Super Mario Brothers 2? What new enemy types would Luigi encounter? This was also around the same time that those Game Boy games were coming out, which those had really interesting villains and boss encounters, and, you know, had me wondering, oh man, is Wario going to be in this game? There's so much, like, hype and mystery surrounding the game, and I could not wait to experience it, which is kind of funny now that I'm talking about it, because I had that same type of excitement for another game starring a second-tier character in Knuckles Chaotix, which came out a few years after this. And comparatively, Knuckles Chaotix, 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Perfect game compared to this. But also, as a kid, I was hit with the same amount of disappointment. And Mario is Missing was definitely along the same lines. And it was also none of those things that I had wanted it to be. And also, like, as a kid, man, I f***ing hated school. You know, if you think I'm a degenerate now, I was worse when I was a kid. I didn't want to f***ing learn. I wanted to kill reptiles and save princesses. And I probably yelled at my parents for even letting me rent this shit. Of all the times they probably thought they wasted their money on games for my brother and I, this was the best case that they had, which is ironic because it's a game that they probably would have passed, that would have passed my Catholic parents' purity test. It's insane. This is truly the work of some higher up dumbass decisions by Nintendo, and like I said, I couldn't have returned the game faster. Mario is Missing is one of those games you return in a Turtles in Time rental case and keep Turtles in Time instead, and then some poor thinks that they're renting Turtles in Time, and then they end up with this garbage, which is, I've totally never done that. Am I giving my thoughts away on this game too soon? Like, we haven't even dove into the development history yet. I can't lie to you and tell you that I've changed my mind over the past 30 years. Some things you don't grow out of. So I guess let me try and at least paint this game in a more respectful light. Let's talk about how and why it even got made. Mario is Missing is an educational game developed and published by the software Toolworks. That's right. It's a Mario game with not a single mention of Nintendo here. As developer or publisher, by the way. Like, think about that for a second. Just think about how absolutely guarded Nintendo is with their IP now. You know, we're going back to 1993, right? And back then, you know, and it wasn't just Nintendo, right? But they were handing their stuff over to basically anybody. And I'm not exactly sure when they were handing over Mario and Zelda to Philips for the CDI games. I don't remember off the top of my head. This was right around that time. And when I think about that era, it never felt right when you heard about the shuffling of licenses and handing over IP that, you know, in one hand was pushing the boundaries of what video games can be. And is also becomes a product that is beyond competency. Knowing full well, you know, we have experienced this in the past with the NES and the Atari, because there are a lot of games that just were not good video games. But because of that, this was also a completely normal practice at the time. So it was just like, well, you know, maybe this one will be good. And Software Toolworks weren't just like a nobody third-party publisher. Like, they were handpicked by Nintendo because of their reputation for polished educational software and their previous relationship on other projects that were released on the NES. So there was like an air of credibility that Nintendo saw in them to carry out a project like Mario is Missing. And this was also around the time when Nintendo was starting to face the same public scrutiny that all major video game publishers were facing at the time due to the Satanic Panic and the whole moral dilemma the United States was facing over the consumption of video games, a very new media, and whether or not they caused kids to turn into total delinquents. And let me tell you, I've sat in enough Halo lobbies in 2002 to tell you that maybe they're right. And I mean, you've heard it all before, right? Especially from me. Sega was positioning itself as the more mature alternative to Nintendo, and Nintendo panicked, and they went the opposite way, playing the industry's goody two-shoes, basically. So, leaning into a more friendly-focused, educational game and slapping a world-famous mascot on it fit their narrative perfectly. It wasn't about expanding the lore and mechanics of the Mario games, but it was the first step in presenting Mario as a recognizable brand. The key people involved in the development are lead designers Donald W. Labs, programmer Jeff Chasin, and Rob Wallace, who created the music and sound effects. And other than following a sort of design bible when it came to how accurate the design of the Mario characters had to be, Nintendo was mostly hands-off when it came to development, which is another incredibly insane thing to hear when you consider almost any Nintendo game that I've covered up to this point surely had Miyamoto sitting in the corner of the room binging Lucky Strikes and staring daggers and threatening anybody who happened to just fidget in their computer chair. And to be fair, he was probably doing mountains of after all the money he made on those Zelda and Mario licenses. Like, Miyamoto did not give a But, outside of the design doc, the only other instructions that Toolworks had were to make the game educational and make it accessible. And it's easy to play this game and think like, man, these guys did not give a about Mario. But in my research, and you gotta believe me on this, and I'll probably say that later, the fact is that these guys, they did care. And they were fans of the games up to this point. They tried to be as accurate and faithful to the games that came before, but they also had to pay attention to detail when it came to the quote-unquote historical accuracy the game needed for educational purposes, which the historical accuracy is debatable. Actually, it's not debatable. We'll get into it in a second. And this was also, it's one of the main reasons why the team deliberately steered away from the traditional platforming that the Mario games are known for. They didn't want this game to be mistaken for a traditional Mario game, and that's why this game, for the most part, succeeds at what it's doing, but it also fails at the same time. The game design wasn't about mastering the game, it was about approachability. And what it really comes down to was something I briefly mentioned before in my previous history, which was the marketing. Even though Mario is Missing was never developed to feel like a traditional Mario game, the marketing absolutely sold it as if it was one. Because there were ads upholding how much of a threat Bowser has become since the last game. And a lot of the same key art from Mario World was being used. In-game screenshots were carefully plucked of Luigi only interacting with other Mario-adjacent characters, and all the visuals were targeted towards people who are already familiar with the franchise, when in reality, that's not what the game is at all. So there's a total disconnect because it was a game that was aimed at parents, but instead reached kids who expected a Mario game. And I think this is one of the reasons why the game cratered as quickly as it did. And so as it goes, Mario is Missing was released in June 1993 in North America for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and a few months later in October for the folks in Europe. Since then, it has been ported to MS-DOS, the NES, Macintosh, and Windows. It was then followed up by, not technically a sequel, a spiritual successor perhaps. Toolworks also made Mario's Time Machine. And yes, you will be getting that episode too, so stay tuned for that. And another wave of lesser known and incredibly bargain bin worthy edutainment games, including the Mario's Early Years series, which I dabbled in. I played all of 3 minutes of that before I felt like I can't say that. It didn't make me feel good. Review scores for context. Game Rankings gave it a 43%. It has a 43% on Game Rankings. I'm all messed up now. All Game gave it a 3 out of 5. Electronic Gaming Monthly has it at 5.75 out of 10. Computer and Video Games gave it 70 out of 100. And GamePro gave it 4 out of 5. And you wouldn't believe it, folks. You wouldn't believe it unless you tried to do it yourself. I couldn't find any perfect score user reviews out there, but I did stumble across a Kotaku article written by Kevin Wong, and it's called, "Actually, Mario is Missing was awesome." Actually. Kotaku, the signifier of quality video game opinions. Actually, you idiot, Mario is Missing was awesome. Sorry, Kev. I know you're a huge Main Quest fan, but you can turn the rest of the episode off now, homie. Sorry. Snarky meets snark. Actually. Let's get into Retro Recollections. Let's see what the real Main Quest faithful have to say about Mario is Missing. This is the portion of the show where you guys weigh in on the game in question. And if you would like to contribute, you gotta join the Discord. I don't do social media anymore. Stop asking why I don't post these anymore on Blue Sky or whatever. They're only getting posted in the Discord, so you gotta come hang out. We're going to start with Soups, who says, "I wish this game was missing instead." Yeah, well said. Agreed, my friend. Matt Storm from the Fun and Games and Reignite podcast says, "What a bizarre edutainment game. I feel like they don't make games like this anymore. For better or worse. I have fond memories of this, but in practice is pretty terrible." I don't know what you mean by games like this. They do make edutainment games. Those exist. They're just better than this. Wouldn't you know, old video games are bad. That's what I hear, at least. Next, we have Lethco of the Afterglow podcast, who says, "Oh God, remember the charm Border Bun products used to have with stuff like Carmen Sandiego, and even non-games like Print Shop? That's all gone out the window. Instead, they teamed with Software Toolworks, makers of Mavis Beacon Typing, the Miracle Piano Teaching System, Chessmaster. Who thought this was a good idea to give them the Mario IP? Well, I hope you know why now. No wonder this game had me jumping on Koopas that can't hurt me and literally explode when you jump on them, looking for a wadded up piece of paper that the game tells me is some historically significant artifact that I gotta hunt down its home for, only to get quizzed on the authenticity of the item when I try to return it. Listen, bitch, use your f***ing eyes. That's the Liberty Bell. Do you really think Luigi went through a ton of effort making a realistic fake cracked bell? He's too busy for that. He's got a mansion to clean ghosts out of. He don't have time for that. And I don't have time trying to find the willpower to beat this game." Hell yeah, I mean, that's the show. That's the show, folks. See you next time. It's okay to like a video game or whatever I say at the end of these. Next we have Captain N from the Retrotopia podcast, who says, Mario is Missing trademark is not merely a video game. This is a long one, by the way, so strap in. Mario is Missing trademark is not merely a video game. It is the moment the universe decided fun should be educational and expensive, marking the birth of the AAA industry with a modest budget of over $1 trillion, a financial gamble so influential that Halo, God of War, and Grand Theft Auto would not exist had this game not bravely established the blueprint for all the interactive media that followed. Its graphics were so impossibly advanced, they outpaced every SNES title, every Sega Genesis game, and, somehow, modern consoles as well, forcing the hardware to politely pretend it understood what it was rendering. At the same time, the legendary soundtrack still echoes through the nightclubs to this day, turning dance floors into scenes of chaotic movement, off-key humming, and enthusiastic clubgoers vibing to songs about global geography. Luigi's character development elevates him from a man who doesn't know where countries are to a man who still doesn't know, but now carries the emotional weight of the world. A narrative arc so powerful, it puts the greatest storytellers in human history to shame. Concurrently, Bowser emerges as a misunderstood curator of international landmarks, and Mario's absence becomes the boldest storytelling choice ever. The gameplay courageously replaces combat with learning, tension with multiple choice questions, and failure? Well, failure is not an option. It all builds towards a finale so profound, so unmatched, and so spiritually exhausting that no game since has dared to challenge it, leaving Mario is Missing trademark standing alone as the single most important, influential, and epic achievement in video games history. Score, 2 out of 10. Thank you, Captain N. Next time, I think all you have to do is say is, actually, Mario is Missing is awesome. He probably just copy and pasted that entire review. That's probably what that was. Anyway, on to Thrak from Thrak Ops. He says, it's the only Mario game my 9-year-old son rejected. That should say it all. To be fair, I think 9-year-olds are too smart for this game. That's something else I'll probably talk about. And of course, we have Chris Copleen from the Retro Hangover podcast, who says, he's missing because this game came out. Imagine telling id Software in 1990 you don't want to ruin the Mario brand by putting him on non-Nintendo products like PC, only to have this game be the game where Mario does just that a year after Doom comes out. Thank you, Chris. And yeah, I think this is one of those situations where Nintendo made a monster, because if I remember correctly, it's been like a year or so since I finished John Romero's Doom Guy. And like the first couple of chapters of that book are about Commander Keen. And I'm pretty sure that the falling out between him and Nintendo led him to creating Commander Keen, if I'm correct. It might not be entirely the reason, but yeah, I think I completely forgot about that until I just read your Retro Recollections. So thank you. A little bit of a little bit more development history, if you will, here at the end of Retro Recollections. Let's get into what makes this game the game. Let's talk about my current experience. And I do like to start with the story and plot. And you guys want some story and plot? You want that? Hold on, let me see. I've got some story and plot right here for you. Bowser's plot. Oh no. Bowser and his bad boys are back to a life of crime. This time, it's not Mario World. It's your world. From his Antarctic castle, Bowser hustles his cold-blooded crew of cantankerous? Oh boy. Cantankerous Koopas into his powerful passcode-operated remote transport and larceny system. What the f***? I'm reading this for the first time, folks. The Twisted Turtles transport themselves throughout the globe, where celebrated cities suffer shell-shocking crime waves as... This is a tongue twister, man. As turtles trash landmarks and loot ancient artifacts. With dough from his slimy sales, Bowser hoards hair dryers from the Have to Have It hotline. His plot? Melt Antarctica and flood the planet. Whoa! Mario's fate. Will the brave brothers from Brooklyn permit this abominable snow plan? Oh my god. The boys say, not Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi. Oh, wait, what? Oh, the boys say, not. Jesus Christ. Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi trek across ice and snow to shellac the shelled one's schemes. But Bowser's slick. In one last trick, he takes the dearest thing of all. Mario is missing! Luigi's mission. Luigi must stop the Koopas, foil Bowser's plan, and find Mario. Sneaking into each portal, Luigi is transported to a city in trouble. There, Luigi needs to nab each Koopa, grab its loot, and return the artifact to its proper landmark. Along the way, Luigi explores the city, chats with the locals, reads maps, and solves puzzles. Help him do this before time runs out. Once he figures out where he is on the globe, Luigi must use the globulator to call Yoshi. Only after Yoshi scares Pokey away can Luigi return to Bowser's castle and lock the portal for that city. Well, at least the manual lets us know what's going on, because the game really doesn't. Like, it wasn't hard to piece the story together, and I was able to figure out why we're doing what we're doing. I shouldn't say why we're doing it. Like, I know we're here to rescue Mario, but the steps in which we take to do that didn't make sense to me, especially since we don't see Bowser until the very end of the game. The game literally begins with Mario falling down not one, but two Looney Tunes Acme-ass holes. These giant black holes. And the first opens up in what I'm assuming is Dinosaur Land from Mario World. And then Mario just lands in front of this hyper-realistic Castlevania-ass looking castle. And Luigi and Yoshi they're already there. They're like waiting for him. Luigi even says something along the lines of like, hey, what took you so long? Which implies that Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi had business to attend to in Dracula's castle. Why were they there? What's the purpose? Doesn't matter, because then the second hole opens up and Mario falls through that, and that's it. And then like Luigi just kind of throws up his hands and he's just like, oh, I guess I'll go find him. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're just gonna go where did he go? How do you know where he went? What do you mean? Like, this is supposed to be a game for kids, to make them smarter. But like, how dumb do you think these kids are already? Like, it's such a garbage setup. But the one thing that I'm glad that the manual establishes is that something that I was not certain about initially is that this game is entirely set in our world. And this gets into gameplay a little bit, but Dracula's castle is a hub area that's broken into 3 floors with 4 or 5 levels on each floor. So initially, I thought we were just merely stepping into a portal from Mario's world and into one of the real-world settings. But no, Dracula's castle is quite literally situated in Antarctica per the globulator, by the way. That's the name of a thing. it's a map. It's just a world map. It's a globe, but the map is flat because the world is flat, right? But it's called the globulator. Perhaps it's the globulator? The globulator? Which makes less sense. Anyway, so with Bowser claiming territory in Antarctica and the world, what is his goal again? Flood the planet, right? Jesus, this sucks. I can't help but wonder if this game is tied to the 1993 film. Because both released around the same time, both have Mario, Luigi, President Koopa, by the way, coming to our world, coming to our planet. The MacGuffin is different, and Yoshi doesn't get stabbed in this game, but they're similar. Anyway, I've been going on too much about this story. It doesn't matter. It's just a vehicle to get Luigi to random parts of the world for children to learn random shit about landmarks around the globe. And here's the hot take for you guys. This is what you came for, right? The story for this game is better than anything else Miyamoto has written for the franchise. So what is it like to play Mario is Missing? Man, let me tell you how on my ass I was over the fact that the Koopas are just casually carrying the entire ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, like, in their pockets. I couldn't believe it. And it just drops onto the streets. The entire ceiling falls out of their pockets. It's just like in the gutter. And Luigi picks it up. like he picked up a quarter on the street. Like, it's insane. It's preposterous. It's stupid. And you don't need much more context for something like this. Everything about Mario is missing, including the smuggling of massive landmarks like black market iPhones or something. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's odd. So basically the game, it's a side scroller out of obligation. And when I think about late 80s, early 90s platformers, especially when it comes to the Mario games, I think about fast-paced, tight, rhythmic, and intentional level design that complements the toolbox of movements and power-ups that are at your disposal. Mario is Missing, however, feels slippery and floaty. Luigi can run and he can jump, but it doesn't feel good. And I even found out that there's like a bug. So while I was messing around with the mechanics, I found this bug with the controls in which if you jump and then you hold Y to run, so you jump, hold Y, Luigi suddenly gains momentum in midair, like at the arc of his jump, as if he were running on the ground, but he's not on the ground. He's floating, and it's so strange. It's bad. The thing is, I don't know why it's there. There's not a lick of platforming in this game. Other than jumping on the Koopas to get them to drop the artifacts that were returning, there's no reason for the traditional Mario movement to even be here. It serves no purpose, and it feels bad. And killing the Koopas isn't satisfying. And when I say we're killing the Koopas, I'm talking about vaporizing them. Like, Luigi sends them to the Shadow Realm because they immediately explode, and Luigi doesn't bounce on them. He falls right through them. Well, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he awkwardly, like, steps off of their heads, and it's kind of like a bounce, but it's definitely not a bounce. And then the Koopa, like, flies away or, like, teleports. I have no idea what the graphic is supposed to be, but All this is to say is that also means you cannot chain jumps together between Koopas that are known to make platforming in Mario feel so good in the first place. It's not even here. None of the traditional platforming mechanics serve this game other than to bust the Koopas open like loot pinatas. Because that's the core of this game. We're running around different parts of the world, Moscow, Paris, Rome, San Francisco, slaying Koopas for loot and returning it to definitely not Princess Peach. I don't know who this person is. It's probably supposed to be Peach. It doesn't look like her. And then she gives a quiz to Luigi, like she's a retro gaming podcaster, about the city's, whatever the city's main attraction is. The thing with the Koopas dropping the artifacts is that there isn't any good feedback when they do drop something. I had no idea what was on the ground. All I know is that I had picked something up, but had zero context for what it was. And I would say that the maps are actually, I would say that it's a good thing that they're as big as they are, for what they are, but they're incredibly tedious to travel around in. So the chances of you running into this totally not Peach before you collect anything is very high. In fact, I don't even think she appears on any of the spawn screens. So on the first stage, I didn't know that I was picking anything up at all. And these questions that fake Peach was asking has nothing to do with the artifacts, but with the landmarks that the artifacts belong to. And there's no penalty for getting anything wrong. She just claims that the artifact that you brought to her is fake, like she's some pawn shop broker. So all you really do is just leave one screen, return, and try again. And the questions aren't even hard. After 6 or 7 stages, I just completely ignored the NPCs and the information Doppelganger Peach gives us and just went straight into the quiz. Which, by the way, there are so many factual mistakes in this game. The first time I recognized a mistake was when I was walking around the world map and Reykjavik was spelled incorrectly. And then later on, one of the NPCs in Beijing says that China is the largest country in Asia, which even in 1993 was untrue. It's Russia. It always has been. So, wondering how much other misinformation is in this game, I went down a rabbit hole, and there is a massive list in the Mario wiki of all the inconsistent facts in this game, including the 2 that hit me over the head. And for a game that's supposed to be aimed towards educating children, it is unacceptable with how much stuff that this game gets incorrectly. It's insane, folks. I'll put a link in the show notes and you can look it over for yourself. So in order to move on from any given stage, you have to basically check things off a list. Kill every single Koopa. Every one of them. Not just the ones that drop loot. All of them. But you also have to collect all the artifacts. Return them. Use the globulator to move Yoshi to your location. And then you leave. This also happened to be the order in which I ended up doing everything, because it felt like the fastest and most efficient way to do things. But even doing it that way didn't keep things from becoming exhausting after like 3 or 4 stages. As soon as I entered a new city, I opened the map to choose my best route through to kill every Koopa. And the way that the maps are structured later on in the game is so deliberately tedious that it creates this artificial padding that wouldn't be tolerable in other games, but would at least make sense in any other game. But this game is not a traditional video game. So why are we doing it? Why do this when the intent of the game is to be strictly educational? The gamey parts, the video game parts of this game are not fun. They're bad. They're very bad. Why would you make children interface with anything this way? Speaking of bad gameplay, once you finish one of the floors in the castle, you are presented with a boss fight with one of the Koopa kids. And I swear to God, it's like playing a bad Flash game. I don't know how long this game was, but I know there's 7 Koopa kids. I thought there was going to be 7 floors. I thought there was going to be 35 levels. I already had it in my head that I was not going to finish this game. But fortunately, there are only 3 floors. And you only fight 3 Koopa kids, I guess. I think it's Lemmy, Iggy, and Roy? I don't remember exactly. I can't put the names to faces. I still did not finish this game, you guys. But let me get back to the fights, the boss fights. So when you finish the final level of that floor and return to the castle, the boss just appears. They just appear and then they run back and forth across the screen at 3 times normal speed. And you have to jump on them like 5 or 6 times or something. But also they can't hurt you. And that's the fight. That's the fight for everyone. And of course it feels awful to play because the boss is running way too fast for you to reliably jump on them. And lest you've forgotten, Luigi on his own also feels pretty awful to control. So just, it sucks. It sucks. And I got through the 2nd floor, and then I think I finished one of the stages on the final floor, and I just had it with this. Fortunately, the game uses a password system to pick up where you left off, which is like, fortunately, I say fortunately, reluctantly, because like, I don't know, why can't you save in this game? Why isn't there a save? Whatever. So I entered a password that has all of the 3rd floor stages completed so that I can see the fight with the final Koopa Kid. I wanted to see if it was any different, which it wasn't. And then go on to see what the final fight with Bowser would be. And there isn't one. Surprise! Go f*** yourself, I guess. It's a shit sandwich dipped in diarrhea au jus. My secret levels is coming out in me. Instead, there's just a cutscene that plays where Luigi pushes a button and Mario just appears. He just walks out from behind a door. And then the worst looking Bowser sprite shows up after that. And then Luigi presses like that same button again. And Bowser falls into a cannon and it shoots him into the frozen barren wasteland of Antarctica where he's just left to freeze to death. Like the bag of chicken nuggets you forgot at the back of your freezer. There's no rescue. There's no rescue. There's no boss fight. There's no payoff. No respect for your time. It's just a complete failure, a total collapse of a game. It sucks. This game. At least those other Mario edutainment games that TuaWorks made they're not pretending to be Mario games. They're literally just menu-based games about different subjects. You pick one off the screen and you solve the problem that they give you. Mario is Missing wants it both ways, and they don't pull it off. So where do I start with the presentation for Mario is Missing? Overall, I don't think it's great, but I never expected it to be. I think the worst offender in the presentation is the soundtrack. The theme for Yoshi's Island from Mario's World is all over this game. You first hear it at the title screen, and because they weren't given any assets, and because this isn't Koji Kondo, you can just really hear how much of this is just a cover of what Kondo does. It doesn't sound right. On top of that, they use this one song to death and remix it to fit the region you're wandering in, which is sometimes effective, but most of the time it's not. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 original pieces of music in here, which are actually okay. They're not bad, actually, and I think they should have just went in that direction instead of just using the Mario World theme and, like, I don't know, putting a mandolin in it or something. And then there's the graphics. So, in a world where we have Mario Odyssey, with Mario running around a real-life New York with other humans, I guess this isn't so bad? But also, the NPCs in this game are pure nightmare fuel. Even Fraud Peach looks awful, and I'm pretty sure they just reused the one sprite of her from Mario World. Not only that, but the NPCs stay the same no matter what part of the world you're in. They do not change, which definitely breaks the immersion a little bit. And then you have the cities themselves, which are surprisingly faithful to the location that they're based on. Like, as faithful as you can get on hardware as old as this. The only thing, though, is that they all lean into the severely obvious. And I guess I'm going to go back to gameplay just for a second. But when you step through the castle door, the game doesn't tell you where you're going to go. So you talk to NPCs and you use these context clues to figure out how to get Yoshi to your location, like where your location is. The thing is, you don't have to talk to anyone, because within seconds, if you're even just vaguely familiar with world culture, you'll know exactly where you are. I think the thing that really surprised me the most is that the game actually doesn't really lean into heavy stereotypes. And I say that surprises me because this is a game from 1993, but also it kind of does lean into stereotypes a little bit in regards to the environment. I don't know. Like, the game does try to throw you off. Like, for example, like I knew that I was in Russia, right? Like, that much was obvious. But when you go to the Globulator, there are 3 or 4 locations there in Russia, so it was just a matter of figuring out if I was, like, in St. Petersburg, Moscow, or Kazan or whatever. And again, there's no penalty if you get it wrong. You just move Yoshi to each location until you get it right. So there's stuff like that where they kind of try to throw you off a little bit. But when I guess when I break it down, the presentation is messy. Is straight up messy. There's a version of this game that works if they just dig their heels in a little bit and pick a direction to go in. Like, is it going to be more Mario than Real World, or is it going to be more of our world than Mario? Because I don't particularly feel like the original stuff that they created was entirely thought through, and the Mario World aesthetics just feel like they're here out of obligation. And I think the game is worse off because they didn't fully commit to one or the other. Personally, I wish they would have committed to a wholly original design and audio aesthetic. Let's get this thing over with. I feel like I've said my piece, so it's time to summarize my thoughts, and if I would recommend checking out Mario is Missing in 2026. No. Have you been listening to this? No. Of course not. Absolutely not. But I guess that's with like one very, 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 very small caveat. But first, the most frustrating thing about this game is that it doesn't fail at what it's doing in the same way like Simon's Quest fails at being a video game. This game fails in the most boring way possible. Like, it's not hard. There's no challenge. It's just tedious. It's repetitive. It doesn't feel good to play, and it completely wastes your time. And the weirdest part is that it can't decide what it wants to be. As a traditional platformer, it doesn't work. If Mario's shaped, then why not play like Mario? Well, because it's branding. It's not an actual Mario game. The movement feels bad. The platforming doesn't matter. And the whole experience turns into a checklist that you repeat until your fucking soul leaves your body. But as an educational game, it doesn't work either because the learning aspects are incredibly shallow and there's no penalty for getting anything wrong. On top of that, you can't even trust what the game is trying to teach you because a lot of it is wrong. And even if you do play through the entire thing, there's no payoff. You get nothing. Which, ironically, might be the perfect ending for a game that doesn't care about you. But in the back of my mind, as I played this, as I recorded this, I've been thinking about something. I've been thinking like, hey, this could work for someone. And that someone is for very young kids who are just learning to read. It's something that if you want them to play something gentle, where failure doesn't exist, this is the game. But even then, there's so many modern educational games that are more fun, they're accurate, and they don't pretend to be something that they're not. So even with this very, very small caveat, it's more or less like fine, I guess, if your kid is 5 years old and you want them to grow to have disdain for you, I guess. Yeah. No. Like, you could say the only thing that is really missing is my recommendation. Like, this game sucks. So, it's another game down. We're on to the next one. I'm both excited and nervous because it's a genre I'm not very fond of. Mostly because when I was first kind of stepping into the genre, I did not know what the hell I was supposed to do. I cannot tell you how many times I died on the first screen and rage quit in the game that you might know as Another World, but I know it as Out of This World. So until then, take time for yourself, love yourself, take care of yourself, and always remember, especially for tonight's episode, especially you, Kevin Wong, actually, it's okay to like a video game. I'm an asshole.